Good. Hi, Akello. Thank you so much for coming to our show. I really appreciate it. I know you have a busy schedule. You're doing multiple things and in your career. So yeah, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. It's the fall is rolling in. I'm up early, had a couple cups of coffee, and I'm ready to roll.
Yeah, I can see the energy 8 a.m. in the morning. The energy you have and positive vibe you have. I really love that. Yeah,
It's nonstop, Russell. It is nonstop. When I was a child,
yeah,
they called it hyperactivity disorder, but I
right.
turned it into, as an adult, I've turned it into a foundation for creation.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so tell us before we get to the topic, what's the podcast about? Which are you gonna talk about reality, and we can talk about your book, which is Seeking Selfdom in the Age of Selfies. So before we get to that, I want to know like who Akello is and how you got started, what made you write the book, and what do you actually do at the moment?
Man, this is, I don't want to take the whole hour talking about my very jagged trajectory through life.
Take your
But
time.
I mean, I really could, but I've gotten really good at being able to summarize it.
Yeah,
Like kind of in a nutshell, I'm one of, very few people in my entire family to go to college. We'll
right.
start out like that. I was born and raised in the Midwest
Yeah,
in a, blue collar family. And I took a trip to New York City. This is in 1988. I took a
yeah,
trip to New York City, went to a Free South Africa rally and demonstration. And first time I ever, I took a bus actually from Detroit to New York City. Had never been to New York City. As soon as we came out of the Lincoln Tunnel, you would have thought I was on a roller coaster because the
yeah,
size of the buildings and the life of the city and the life of the people. And I just knew that there was something, my life was going to be different, that I knew I had. It's like you have that first taste of something and you said, I have to have something different. So I have moved around the country. I've spent some time in Atlanta, Georgia. I spent some time in Oakland and San Francisco, which is in Northern California. And I've been in Southern California for 20 years now. Actually moved down here after being a corporate recruiter because I
yeah,
said someone needs to help these young people. They're coming to these career fairs and they don't know how to present themselves. And so I said, I'm going to find a way to make myself a spot in higher education and help these students outside of just the curriculum.
yeah,
The curriculum, it's important, but most of the stuff people forget, right? Except for the
yeah.
test, right? But what can I leave them with? How can I guide them in a different way? So that I've been doing it for 20 years. I was going to give 10 years and it ended up
Wow.
turning into 20 years. But I mean, all that to say is I used to teach at 3 different colleges. Now I'm at one.
Mhm.
Predominantly the students that I have are first generation college students,
Yeah,
African-American, Latino students, and international students. Those are
right.
really who come to my class. I've had students from age 15 to age 70.
Yeah.
So all that, I know that was a lot, but I think here we are right now. I turned 50 last year.
Wow. It doesn't look like
Yeah.
it. I told you the other day, it don't look like it. Like I thought about mid 30s. So
Yeah,
yeah,
well, I
the
appreciate
energy
that.
and vibe you have,
Yeah.
it's just so great for like having a positive professor in class, like they love to learn from you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you're younger, 50 can look pretty old. It sounds pretty old.
Yeah.
I had great anxiety over turning 50. And so maybe 2 years before, when I was 48, I created a short documentary video called Pushing 50, where me and 4 other people who were about to turn 50 answered
Right.
7 of the same questions, because I never had a conversation with people in my
Yeah.
age cohort about what that meant.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, all the people that were in my documentary, I had a personal relationship with. I actually reached out to 40 people And I only got 4 people who were willing to answer these very deep, provocative questions on camera. And interestingly enough, though, each of us that were in the video, none of us had children.
Right.
There's something different about being a middle-aged adult and not having a child by choice, right? Child-free versus childless, right? It's a different life trajectory. It's kind of like when you have children, a lot of everything that you do kind of folds into taking care of them and raising them and socializing them, and everything. Your needs really come second.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not like a needy person, and so my life has been, what can I do if I'm not raising children? Of course, I play uncle, and I'm the fun uncle, but I can step away from that. But it was okay. So what am I supposed to then really be doing for the big picture of life? Because I'm not chasing money. I just need enough money to be able to, live a basic life. I don't need fancy things. I don't need big house and all that. But what I do need is some sense of purpose. And I don't believe that purpose just knocks on your door. I don't think that a light shines through the clouds and the purpose is revealed to you. I think if you feel that is happening to you, I obviously that's your feeling, and that's great. But I don't think it is a magical thing. I think you find it. I think you have to find it, and it doesn't mean that you may spend your whole time finding purpose, and it may be more than one, and it may be seasonal, and it may be, depending upon what you can give at that moment. But there's always something that you can give to the world. I mean, I really firmly believe that sometimes just sharing a part of yourself with the world is a tremendous thing to help somebody. I don't think, I don't think we can tell people what to do and how to better their lives. I think that's impossible.
Yeah, that's great. I'm just curious to know, like, what are the 7 questions you guys asked, during your documentary?
Like right off the top of my head. So let's see. So I know a couple of them were, what are your greatest fears about getting old? What are your greatest fears about getting old? Have you ever been in a social situation where you felt you were too old to be there?
Right.
Has anyone ever said you look younger than you do? See, like those kind of questions. But the question, and so kind of leading up to this idea of what does it mean to turn 50? Like that was the lead question. What does it mean for you? And I promise you, and the reason that I always bring this up is because, again, I hadn't had these type of conversations with people that I've known for decades. We just didn't sit around and have the conversation, right? And so I said, here's the questions. I want you to self-tape. So, you can, whenever you feel comfortable, set the camera up. I said, but just don't do several takes. Just do one take, like we're doing here on the podcast. We're not going to, hey, start that question over again, because then it's inauthentic, right?
Yeah.
And one of the, how you have people that there's certain reliable people that you have, right? And there's always someone, I always want to be the one that like gets it to you first, boom. So I have a friend like that. And she sent me the questions, and I was so excited because it was the first taped questions for the documentary. And when she started answering that question, and what does it mean to be 50? And she starts off by saying, it means that I probably don't have another 50 years. I kind of like teared up. I never thought about, you never think about that. Yeah, we're all going to die, but then we don't talk about it. So it doesn't even exist. Right. And then I was like, oh, we don't have 50 years. I was like, do I even have 25? I mean, can I squeeze 25 or 30? And then I think about how fast the last 25 or 30 years has gone by. And I was like, damn, wow. So for me, even though I did the documentary kind of, to share that conversation with people, it was really, for me, it was a cathartic experience for me, because I said, by the time I'm 50, I want to jump out of a plane. I want to write a book. So which is why I was like, okay, you got to start getting on these to-do lists, these bucket lists, right? I mean, people have bucket lists and they're not necessarily a formalized list, but there are certain things that I was like, I have got to try that. Actually, because of COVID, you know, I had the skydiving was delayed for like 6 months.
Yeah,
But
everything was shut down.
it
Yeah.
did finally happen, and probably yes, and that was probably the most blissful experience I've had on the planet. Even better than taking drugs or alcohol.
I can't do that. I can't do the skydiving. I'm scared of height. Don't know what will happen.
But that is the reason. If you have identified something that that causes you anxiety and fear,
Yeah,
and if you avoid it, that fear is still there.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're on the top of a building or you're this. So, you know, I'm the kind of guy where it's like if something is challenging and something that I fear and something that I am actively avoiding, well, damn it, I need to kind of look into it and I need to do that, you know. So the only thing that I think that I'm afraid of now is snakes. I haven't figured out a desensitization, but I'm open to it as long as they don't have teeth.
Yeah, yeah. Slowly you'll get there. Experiencing different things, isn't it? Yeah, so come to the topic today. So you wanted to talk about reality of life, right? So what do you mean by reality of life? And can you explain it a bit to us?
Well, I mean, it kind of sounds Matrix like, right? I think everyone has seen the Matrix, right? If they haven't seen the Matrix, sorry
Yeah,
for the spoiler, but really the general idea is at least in my interpretation, let's do it like this. And it's not only a film, but it's also in real life. Like I have a very scientific mind. Probably in another life, I was a you know, neuroscientist because I late in life I find out all these fascinating things that I wish I would have known early.
yeah,
But you know, I'm fascinated by the brain. I think the brain is pretty much it's the organic recreation of the universe. You know, if you look at
yeah,
the connections in the brain, that is the entire universe. If you look at a photo of like the galaxies in the universe, and then you look at kind of some artists illustration of what the neural pathways look like, to me,
yeah,
this looks like galaxies and planets and shooting stars and that kind of thing. So we start out with that, like the brain being this biological entity that gives rise to the mind. So the mind is where, again, this is all my interpretation. I you know, everyone has their opinions, but the mind is kind of the consciousness aspect. The mind is about awareness. The brain is about giving rise to the functionality of consciousness.
yeah,
You know, kind of like, you know, if you look at kind of the organ systems in the body, we don't think about what's going on in the gallbladder when we eat something, right? We're just
yeah,
focusing on the taste. So when we are in our mind, we're not really focusing on the chemical processes, the electrical impulses that run through our body that give rise to this consciousness. And from this consciousness, throughout the entirety of our lives, based upon our experience and our knowledge, our perception, our belief, we formulate this idea of what it means to be alive and what it means to exist. Now, when you start talking about existence, only second to death. I mean, if people avoid the death conversation, but the second probably conversation that people avoid is the nature of existence.
yeah,
It's like, what are you, a philosopher? You know, I find it kind of tragic that academicians who have these incredible ideas, incredible thinking on things, are unable to decode that and decipher that so that the everyday person can really understand it, you know. So I, like, one of my charges, I guess, in life is to find a way to be able to bridge those higher level academician language in ideation into something that people can understand. People can, and universally, people can understand food. You'll always hear a food reference from me because people understand food. It doesn't matter where you are on the planet, what language you speak, people understand food. So that's why I like to use food as a reference. But let's talk about reality. Reality is the idea that I'm here during this period of time. Now, we all kind of look at the world through our own eyes, right? We hear opinions, we understand others. Many of us understand a little bit about other people's experiences. That's empathy. A lot of times we may have compassion for other people and the challenges and struggles they have. Perhaps we may even have that for our compassion for ourselves, which we could work on. But I have a reality I'm moving through the world in. You over there have a reality that you're moving through the world in based upon your accumulated experience, knowledge, belief systems, whether or not you really continue to refine and grow and evolve that. That's different from person to person either too. You know, people find, I call it spaghetti on Thursday people. They're always going to have spaghetti on Thursday. And that, to me, if something happens and they couldn't have spaghetti on Thursday, the whole world would collapse for a short amount of time. So you have my reality, your reality. So that's two realities. The third reality is the one that we agree and collectively share. You remember a Venn diagram where you have the two circles and then they overlap? This is where we operate. So when you use a certain word to describe your experience, we're coming to the agreement that we define that word in the same way. Otherwise, we're just going to be stuck, right? So if I said, oh, I'm drinking coffee, it's not necessary for you to know what kind of coffee. Is it whole bean? Where is it sourced? Is it high in acidic? You know, you don't need to know all that to understand the concept of coffee. But when we talk about reality, that's a little bit different, isn't it? That's a little bit, you know,
more depth into it.
It is. So then that's three realities. This is, you have to, it's good to be aware of this. You're aware of your own reality, someone else's that you collectively agree on. The fourth reality is, and again, I nerd out on a lot of documentaries about space. I just, you know, so it's almost like, oh, we're going to talk about space today. And then this, no, like, let's talk about space like forever, because, because that is, so the size alone, the size. I mean, if you just looked at the solar system, people think the solar system is this little tiny thing. I mean, you know, what is it, like 6 months to get to Mars or something, right? So it's pretty big, the solar system. So the idea of the reality of the entire universe and that we are a part of that universe, number one, a little bit, that's a mind-blowing as it is. But if you tell people that everything in the universe is created from the same atoms, and they're just reconfigurations, different types of complex reconfigurations, like the human body, everything that we look around in our reality is, you know, started out as stardust, started out as from the same components. And when you use the same components, there is a connectivity to the point of origin, even if you can't see, even if you can't even think about it, because it's just so vast, right? People have a limited amount of understanding that they can really operate in, you know, they some people, their limited reality is within their neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? They don't even go that far with it. And then other people are more kind of like, you know, bigger, broader. Then you get the global people, and then you get people looking at that. So then you have to also, in your day-to-day, you have to add that fourth dimension, because if you put the idea of this, if you put the idea of a reality that's outside of our comprehension, because we just, you know, we have not been able to formulate the language to describe and comprehend. It doesn't mean that we can't. I think there's things that are locked in our brain that we are not going to be able to pull out because we don't have the language. We don't have the ability to really think about it. It's just too big. It's like trying to pick up an elephant with one finger. It's just not going to happen. But we can think about picking up the elephant, but we're not going to be able to do that. but
Yeah.
it's still there. It is still omnipresent. And I used to be kind of like, when people used to talk about the idea we're all connected, and again, I've had many shifts, I've had many shifts. I went from cynic to like really wanting to understand that even more. I'm like, these people, what are they talking about? We're all connected, and I was like, damn, my American upbringing is like individual, you against the world. And I believe that once we really understand that at the most fundamental molecular level, we
Yeah.
are all connected.
Yeah, that's a different way to think about the life and everything. So, what will be like a starting point for someone to figure out and think like yourself on
Oh,
reality of life? Yeah.
wow, I don't believe that like one religion or one scientific um, stream of consciousness, if you will, is more accurate than another. I believe the more the merrier, the more perspectives that you can get on your life, the more ways that you can dissect your everyday experience. Because I am a sociologist by trade, but I
Yeah.
also see the manifestation of society within our psyche. So
Yeah.
there's that aspect. I really think that a good starting point for people is to observe their own interpersonal dynamics with other people.
Mhm.
Like step back and reflect on a conversation that you've had with someone
Yeah.
recently. And then ask yourself, how much did you ask for clarification for things that were ambiguous? How much did you push that person to expand their thinking on a subject? How much did you yourself share with that person? Did you hold back? How did you feel when you were, talking to that person? How do
Yeah.
you think that person felt? So it's really just looking at the way that you interact with people, which really is such a great expression of ourselves, right? If we're willing
Yeah.
to really put ourselves into it. Now, I can decipher between a very quality conversation with someone and one that is just obligatory, like let's get it done and then move on, and there's no real interest. I can easily get out of those conversations. When I was younger, I would be stuck in those conversations and not know how to get out of them, right?
Yeah.
So for me, and some of this stuff is what I talked about in the book, which is pretty kind of like a manifesto of my philosophies, right? But I talk about the ability to think on your feet, because it's
Right.
one thing to establish like, again, being a commercial actor also in LA, there's sometimes where they give me this commercial script to
Mhm.
do, and it's like really quick commercials. These are not long, but even if it's like 5 lines, I'm like, who wrote this? Like, who says this? You know what I mean? So I was like, that's why I said, I'm a good think on your feet person. I've taken improv classes to develop that, but it's something, again, that I've always wanted to do. Because haven't you ever had a conversation and you was like, damn, I wish I would have said this, or I wish maybe I shouldn't have said that, but in the course of that conversation, you can actually create you can actually emphasize that collective reality that you have with that
Yeah.
person, so that's why it was good starting point that you asked about those realities, because every interaction we have is creating that reality. It's creating that reality, and it's also a mirror to ourselves. Other
Mhm.
people help us understand ourselves. They reflect ourselves. um, they should. I think they should. I think we should also help reflect upon other people so that they can see themselves through our eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about like doing a meditation and taking a step back from like a wherever we are chasing to figure out who we are, what's the life about, what's the reality is about? Do you think that helps going to the meditation process?
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. Now, I mean, I can't lie. I have been on the grind. I've been on the grind, man, since I was, an 18.
Yeah.
I'm like always working, always doing something. If something's not happening for me, I quit that. I start something else. I create something new. It doesn't work out. I've, had a couple businesses. They didn't work out. So be it. Life is a playground. Sometimes you fall down and you get your knee scraped in the playground. Playground, funnest place for kids.
Yeah.
It could also be a very dangerous place, right? So if you're willing to play in the playground, but then again, it's interesting. And even though I'm not like, I don't see myself standing at death's door at age 51 now. I'm 51 now. Like that first year was like, ooh, okay, it's not so bad. I'm like, oh, you just made this all up in your head. Like you wanted something to have anxiety about. But it is now it's kind of looking at more about, not about really status. I'm not about status, labels, titles, that kind of thing. I'm just not about that. I'm about what can I do to make people feel valued and make people feel loved? What can I do to increase my own self-love? Because that's something, again, that is something, talk about observation. Like the meditation is a great way to just observe how crazy your mind is. You're like, wow, my mind is just like, it's like monkey mind. They call that monkey mind. It's just all over the place. You're sitting still quietly and you think your mind is just going to fold in and go like this, and it doesn't. It's almost like if the parents went away and the kids have a party. So you're sitting here quietly, not moving, but you can't really get involved in the party. You're just observing. So there's that observation. Another thing that I do outside of meditation is I have done different kinds of workshops, half-day retreats, even 3-day. I've thrown myself into things that I know are going to be uncomfortable. For me, I was like, okay, you've got to do this. I did a 3-day workshop. It was called Camera Ready. And on the surface, it seems like it was actually more training to be on camera. And I was like, well, you can never get enough training. Maybe there's something more that I need or can get out of it. Yeah. But what it really was, it was like a self-exploration in this really deep psychological way, because of the idea of, if you can really connect with yourself, you'll be able to connect with an audience through the camera. So it wasn't technique, delivery, speed, structure. It was, it's like pre-work. It's like, how are we going to bring ourselves? Because there's so many, and again, it was an interesting thing because I'm one of those people who I'm just myself all the time. Right. There's different, I can be obviously more professional if I need to be. I can be fun and lively, but my life force runs through me all the time, and I can't play another person. But what I found in this 3-day workshop was that I didn't really love myself. Well, I like myself. Yeah. But I didn't love myself. I mean, for one thing, I just felt like self-love sounded kind of gross and narcissistic, like someone staring at the mirror. Yeah. But like it was like, well, why do I? I had to convince myself that it was.
Is that because of like you wasn't be who you are? You couldn't express yourself?
I think it was because I had a very turbulent home life coming up, and my self-confidence was destroyed before it ever had any chance to emerge. Right. So then I spent a lot of time existing outside of myself as an observer of myself, but not really sitting in my body. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so as I've gotten older, I mean, this whole breakthrough only happened probably 5 years ago. Imagine that 5 years ago, and you realize you're really kind of observing yourself, and you weren't really in your body. You weren't really in your mind. and all you did was criticize yourself and try to work against that self-criticism by
Mhm.
you know, I want to talk about this too because it kind of come to mind, and maybe you've heard about that. Have you heard people say they want to redefine themselves?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what do you think about that? Let me ask you that.
It's an interesting thing, which probably because they're not satisfied on themselves, so wanted to make the change and asking them kind of thoughts they have on their mind. Um, what I think is probably because of what's going on to the world, like a social media, seeing someone like your
Yeah,
friends, your relative, or like a people we follow on social media, then we tend to be like, oh, I can be that person. Why not me doing this kind of thing? So that's why all of them glamorous thing is all mostly is like a materialistic thing. It's not like a personal growth. Like I try to compare myself to you would be like being stupid because you come from a different background compared to mine, and I have my own identity. You have your own identity. So finding myself, like who am I, and doing my best ability to finding myself. That's why I said like a step back and finding your own reality, like who
yeah,
you are, what are you trying to do. We talked the other day, like you said, you rather be a second person, an organization, rather than a
yeah,
top guy.
yeah,
And I prefer, like, I want to be the top guy rather than a second person, even though I don't earn any money. I just do voluntary work. This is who I am. I.
yeah,
So, yeah, so it's everyone different. And sometimes, like, you could be the person, like, why not become a CEO? Why not I become a founder? Why not I create a new next Apple? I become a Steve Jobs, but you knew like this is not something you want to be. This is not your purpose. This is not your life. You're not driven by chasing a shiny object, or not driven by $1 billion company, or not driven by like the money and the status of the CEO. And you probably want to leave a legacy of a like good life, being a happy person, do something for the community. It doesn't really have to be like a Steve Jobs. They didn't talk about motivational stuff or anything. They was like being an engineer, and they didn't actually show the how to be happy. Even though we watched a documentary over his life, you find out most of the time he was unhappy. One of the
sure, yeah,
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 I think the movie called Jobs. So yeah, I saw him like he frustrated all the time, even though he made the
yeah,
money and everything.
yeah,
And
yeah,
end of
yeah,
just before he passed away, he had a cancer. That time he realized I didn't give my time to my family, myself. All the time I was just
yeah,
building and building it. And he had like unsatisfied life. So you can see so many of them athletes, so many actor, actress, so many people like a CEO, founders of the companies, billionaires, millionaires. They couldn't figure out themselves what they want. It's just competing with each other's, like the social status, money, fame. I need to get a Lamborghini. Why I need a Lamborghini? Why I need a Ferrari? You need to ask them kind of
yeah,
questions. Like I
yeah,
don't need it. As long as I can get to A to B with a comfortable
yeah,
way. Like
yeah,
I need AC, I need a heating on my car, and like automatic car. That's my preference. It doesn't mean like the car is 2005 or 2021 plate. It doesn't really matter, and how much the car worth. But it all comes down to like a need to show off. And even though you realize them kind of cars, they parked it for weekends. So on the weekend, Sunday or Saturday, they're taking it out. But most of the days, no one really cares about it. And
yeah, yeah,
yeah, so that kind of things like what I think about it in terms of like your questions. So we really need to step back and finding out, define ourselves. Are we actually doing it for others, or are we doing it for ourselves? What makes us happy? Like, and it's not gonna be like a one day answer. It's gonna take some time. Like you mentioned, like 5 years back, you're still figuring out yourself. Even though right now you're still figuring out yourself.
oh
And
yeah,
even though
oh
myself, I'm
yeah,
27 years old. When I was 18, 19, I thought I'll figure out myself, but still I'm figuring out. Like, who am I?
you
What
will
I want to
be, and
call?
you will
Yeah,
be,
yeah.
absolutely. And I think that again, you know, I really love that you talked about those really famous leaders, if you will, for lack of a better term, but people that they're the world renowned leaders.
Yeah.
in certain fields. The amount of sacrifice, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
you know, mine's like, man, I don't know. I've been in positions where the accountability kept getting higher, and you know, I just felt like, man, it just, you know, I've had jobs where I've worked 60, 70 hours a week. I've done that. I've had those salary jobs, and I was like, wow, is this really it? And then, you know, because I'm always, and again, it's not about, for me, it's not just always about happiness as much as it is about peace
Mm,
and
definitely.
simplicity and uncomplication. You know, we're not always going to be happy. I don't think happiness is a permanent state. I think there are moments of happiness and moments of sadness. My Dharma teacher mentioned like life has 10,000 sorrows and 10,000 joys. And
Yeah.
everybody just wants the joy. That's all they want, right?
It's
And
never
when
gonna
sorrow
outlive. Yeah.
comes, it's as if they're doing everything they can to stop that. But back on the idea of people saying they want to redefine themselves, I think that refine is a better way to describe that. You cannot strip, nor should you strip
Yeah.
away everything that makes you who you are. You know, it's not about evaluating, this is a good part of me, this is a not so good part of me. You know, it's about what part of this do, you know, is helpful to me, what part is harmful to me or to other people. That's really
Yeah.
the question. Those tweaks, sometimes it's little tweaks, it's just a little refinement. I know it sounds way off topic, but I cook. I don't know if anyone else out there cooks.
I
I
cook.
mean, if
I'm chef. I worked in a restaurant for 8 years. So
oh,
yeah.
I love it. Okay, so I'm constantly trying to refine, and I have a small kitchen, nothing fancy, but I was constantly trying to refine the layout and where things were, and so that the
Yeah.
functionality flows. And there was a breach. There was a breach in the ability to, you know, reach certain jars and things in his cupboard. And this happened twice. I promise you it happened twice. And just this past weekend, I said, I got to fix this. But I would reach in to try to grab something, and then it would pull the jar and crash down to the counter,
Yeah.
glass, and one was tomato sauce, which then splashed all over the cupboards, all over me on the floor with pieces of glass. And it was a half an hour to clean up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it happened again. It was a smaller jar. And I was like, you have got to move you got to move your cupboards around. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like what's in the
Organize it.
cupboards.
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't redefine the cupboards. I simply refined it. I just pulled everything out. And then I thought about where the oils are, you know, your cooking oil, where your seasoning is. I was like, I'm going to take it only took a couple hours. I'm going to take everything out of the cupboards. I'm going to clean the cupboards. I'm going to organize, and I'm going to get this right. Why am I not doing this? Why do I keep knocking this tomato? Why am I going to keep knocking a jar? What is it going to be, a jar a month? You know, and after cleaning all that glass and tomato sauce up for 30 minutes, I was like, yo, you have got to fix this. So let's take that idea and think about something that keeps tripping you up in your life every day. The way that you're thinking, the way you're interacting, make a little small tweak. Say hello to a stranger, smile at a stranger, give someone a compliment, share something about yourself with someone, whether they want it or not. Like, those are little tweaks that I think can make you feel better, make you feel more connected to people. And especially at this time, man, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
if coming out of this pandemic, you do not have a greater appreciation for quality interaction with people in real life versus this video. Like, I can't come over to where you're sitting there. You're very far away. But there
Yeah.
are people who are like literally 5 miles that I haven't seen in 2 years because we're in our little cameras.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this just doesn't work for me. You know, I cannot wait to like really start interacting with people again.
Yeah. That's the great way to think about. And yeah, I can relate to that. So small changes eventually works on bigger things. Like we need to appreciate the people around us as well. So sometimes it could be like a family and friends we haven't seen, and going and seeing them, it's a great thing. Like it's for your better self. It's not like for them. So sometimes I think about like I miss my family sometimes with the work,
Yeah.
with the family. I have a new boy, so it's a chaotic moment, even though it's been locked down and everything. So sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm gonna go later on next month and month after. Then eventually I'm losing about myself because I'm the one who get more happier when I go visit my family, like a brother, sisters, or friends. So much so for it's like I'm doing it for myself. It's not about
Yes.
how they think. It's not about how excited they get by seeing me.
Right.
Sometimes kids could be love me, but sometimes the elders maybe not that interested because we can't please everyone. But end of the day, I'm the one getting all the joy. I get excited. I get to drive half an hour, 1 hour drive. I'm gonna enjoy my moment driving it, talking to my wife and have a fun with my child while he's in his back
Yes.
seat, and
Yes.
also going to the drive and everything. Then when I get to see them, I play with them kids and have a good time, have a good meal or something. So it's come down to like, yeah, why not thinking about instead of thinking about others, like focus on my own happiness and my own growth. The more I'm gonna do that, it's actually I'm growing myself. So have less expectation for others and more expectation on me, which I can control. Am I going to be happy during the time? Yes. Then why not
Yeah.
doing it? So
Yeah.
yeah, I can really relate to that.
And,
And
yeah, that's in you know, that's a conversation into itself, is the idea of expectations
yeah,
that we put on people, and we haven't even discussed it with them. They don't even know that we expect certain things. You
yeah,
know, that's again going back to those realities, right?
yeah,
Your reality is that you have an expectation, but it's never been communicated to them, right? And so the funny thing is too is if you focused on what brings you joy in those moments, right? The joy that you experience is going to expand outward towards other people. And I find some of the greatest joy when witnessing other people having a joyful moment.
right,
You know what I mean? And it
yeah,
just becomes, there's this exponential, like for me, it's very interesting because you said, I like, you know, you talking about my energy level. I'm not always like that, like when I'm by myself, maybe in a physical sense I have energy, but in terms of my expression, it's not there because I'm by myself.
yeah,
I could be by myself physically for days and not even say a word out loud. There are days like that. And then I have days when I get around, when I'm interacting with you, even though it's video, there's still an energetic component. But then if it's in real life where people are moving and you're in different space together, like when people visit, I do have a couple people that, have been kind of in my bubble.
yeah.
And like when they come over, we'll cook. We'll get in the kitchen. I'm like, let's look at the refrigerator and we'll just start chopping stuff up and cook. Because I don't want to just get around and sit with someone and just look at them in the face. Like I'm a doer. Like let's do something. So like sometimes people, I think in the most awkward interactional moments, I think if you're doing something together that, you can, it relieves some of that tension I think that people have. And kind of like think people wonder, like, I wonder what they want me to say or how they want me to say it. Have you ever, thought about like how people perceive you and like what kind of self-presentation are you putting out there?
Mm.
And I just had to abandon all that and just focus on what I think who would I want to be? I want to be the kind of person that I would like to hang out with. I would like to
Yeah,
be the kind of person that I would like to spend time with. And so if I reach that level and if I enjoy spending time with myself, which I do, imagine being able to bring that to someone else. And then I don't have to do anything different. I'm just being me. Like people that know me know that I am who I am pretty much all the time. And
yeah,
if
and
I,
it takes care of itself. Yeah,
yeah. So, and again, and I have a long way to go to, you know, get to know who I am, get to know my place in the universe. I definitely don't have enough time left as it relates to the average life expectancy to get it done. but it's kind of one of those things where this is
You can
not
live another 50 years though. A lot of
yeah,
people are over 100.
it's never, you're never going to get there. You are never going to get there because your brain, which is what you operate from and your thinking, is a recreation of the universe, which is so expansive we can't even think about it. So how about that? You can't, you'll never get there. So just keep trying. Just climb
Yeah.
up the ladder. You'll never reach the roof, but man, every time you get up a little higher, you get a better view.
Yeah.
Unless you're afraid of heights.
Definitely. So yeah, that was the reality of life mostly covered. So I want to get to seek your book. So I
Oh
want to
yeah.
know a little bit about your book, Seeking Selfdom in the Age of Selfies. Why is the title?
This is the title.
Yeah.
I actually learned Adobe Illustrator so I could make my own cover. I made my
Right.
own cover. I wrote the book. I laid it out. I took my own selfie for the back of the book. I wanted to be 100% me because
really
I
like
wanted,
that.
yeah, I wanted to challenge myself in that way because I'm a left brain, right brain guy, you know?
Mhm.
Do you mind if I read the back real quick?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Let me, yeah, I like to, I don't have this down to memory, but it says, we live in a time of great irony. We take countless photos of ourselves, post them to social media for others to view, and yet we don't really see ourselves. While many seek power, material gain, and that elusive thing called happiness, countless others seek something more, both a deeper relationship with themselves and a greater understanding of themselves. Selfdom is the consummate curator of our multifaceted identity, the custodian of our grand purpose, and the champion of our limitless imagination. Cultivating this important relationship offers us new ways of looking at our lives and life itself through multiple lenses that challenge our intellect, strengthen our interpersonal connections, and invigorate our soul. The ideas shared in this can be profound catalysts for personal growth and transformation, predicated on your own terms, executed in your own way, and accomplished in your own time. Like part of this book was like, I'm so tired of people putting these books out and these multi-step plans and come to my seminar for, you know, $800 and you can learn how to grab life by the horns, you know? And it was like, it's all here. You have all the answers right here. You really do. You just haven't tapped into it.
Right.
You know, no one can give you the answers because there is no cookie cutter plan. You know, each one of us, we're like snowflakes. As much as we like to say we're commonality, we are so different from one another. Even I love looking at identical twin studies, right?
Yeah.
Because identical twins have the same genetic material, they're raised in the same environment, but those micro experiences that they have and those nuances of personality. So those are some of the things that I tap into is personality, looking at, you know, how do we think? Have you looked at the way that you think? You know, what is your process of thought? What about your emotionality? See that, I mean, again, these things, if you haven't even looked at these things, you know, save your money for those seminars. Just take the time to look. What is your emotions like compared to other people? Do you feel deeply or do you feel more of in a neutral? Like, are you more neutral? Are you more middle of the road in terms of your emotional expression? Especially when you have those intense moments of extreme grief or extreme exuberance. How do you express yourself in those emotional moments? Doesn't mean that you're not experiencing the emotion, but there's a lot of people that express emotions in different ways. Just because you're not crying does not mean you're not feeling an intense grief, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of who we are. So if you're already feeling an emotion and even though you're not expressing it, then can you go deeper into that emotion, you know, where that emotion came from and how does it make you, you know, how do you deal with that emotion? So these are just, I'm giving you a little taste of these. I'm not going through like, let's create a goal for the week. You know what I mean? It's not that kind of thing. It's like, let's go deeper. Let's go deeper into kind of the root system instead of just pruning. We're always pruning the leaves. We're not going into the root system.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So if anyone wants to, I don't want to like everything you want to tell on the podcast about your book. I want people to go and read it themselves and yeah, get benefited from it. So is your book available on Amazon or how did people find it?
It is on Amazon. Absolutely. It's if you just typed up seeking selfdom, it will pop up.
Yeah.
And again, it was never like I never wanted to do it to like make money or anything. I wanted to, again, spread a message, because I guess unless you know me, even if you do know me, you really don't know like the layers and layers of things that run through my mind, right? So
Yeah,
to
of
be
course.
able to put it
Yeah.
down in a book in a physical way, this is for me kind of a symbolic immortality. There's going to be a physical, when I'm dead, someone's going to have this sitting on their bookshelf somewhere, you know
Yeah.
so a piece of me will be there for whatever it's worth. And and if there's even one person that derives some insight into themselves as a result of just one passage, then to me that was, it's all worth it. Because
Yeah, that's great.
writing a book is no joke, man. It's a
I can
very
I can totally understand. I'm still trying to write my book. It's been 3 years now, but the main thing is like I want to do like 3 books, probably first part of my life, middle part of my life, and last part of my life,
I
because the
love it.
journey is keep on going on. Like I
Yeah.
mentioned before, I didn't know like this year will going to be like we're going to have trouble with our baby first one child, because I thought
Yes.
everything is smooth going. Business is fine, got married, happily ever after. Now we have a child. But who knew like we're gonna have like a bad news during the time we're gonna about to lose our child. So yeah, it's one thing and another. Pandemic happened. God knows what's gonna happen in the next 5 years. Could be a war, could be natural disaster, could be like business going
Anything.
on, distance, anything. We don't
Anything.
control anything. How about my health? How about my spouse's health? My child health? We don't know. So that's why just keep on writing it, but just being patient at the same time and just waiting to learn more about it and experience more of the life. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I
not
mean,
easy to write a book. Yeah.
no, it's not. And I think part of it, and of course, it's a lot of time by yourself sitting in front of a screen, right?
Yeah.
Editing is a beast, as you already know. But the idea for me, again, it's like, and it's not perfect. There's not perfection. I
Yeah.
if you know what the cost of a book editor is, it's more than I would ever make if I sold 1,000 books. I've
Mhm.
actually given away 250 copies of this book, and I probably sold 30.
Right.
But I've given them away on my own dollar. I created this list of people that have had some significance in my life, whether we interact all the time or not. And I mailed out the book because I just wanted them to say, I wanted them to see pretty much this is where my mind is at. So if you want to, if you want to just still be in my world, this is what I'm thinking about now.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, that there are people who, during this pandemic time of, change and uncertainty, there are people that have really disappeared from my life just with no explanation.
Yeah.
And, the old me would have just grieved and wanted to know why, and then now the adult 51-year-old me says, you know what, people make their decisions and they are free to make their decisions. They're free to make those kind of choices. No, I can't expect anything from anyone around longevity. And
Yeah.
it is what it is. And bottom line, if you approach uncertainty in a different way, it won't be like, what's the next thing that's going to happen, right? It's like, because things are going to happen. Good,
Yeah.
things that we like and glad that they happen, and things that we don't. But being able to manage the feelings that come when those emerge, and being able to, like, I would say, like, I'm very good in really high crisis situations.
Mhm.
That's kind of thinking on your feet kind of thing, and a lot of times people become paralyzed, right? with
Yeah.
that. So if you really want to, refine yourself and instead of redefine, look at what paralyzes you and why does it paralyze you? Because that's problematic when
Yeah.
things come up, right? The paralysis could be catastrophic. So when nothing's happening, nothing's happening right now, good or bad, this is the time to really tap into what paralyzes you and what you can do to strengthen your ability to adapt to uncertainty.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kilo, for like sharing your knowledge on the topic. We are running out of the time. So if anyone wants to reach out to you, want to work with you or learn more about you, how they can reach out to you?
Oh, just you can go to my website at www.akellostone.com. It's that easy.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you so much for taking the time out for me and my audience. I really, really appreciate it. I know you have a
Hey, I
busy
appreciated the
schedule and
conversation.
everything.
Definitely.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, this podcast. So yeah, I appreciate it and wish you good luck with your life and your book. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. I hope you reconsider a tandem skydiving jump.
I'll see about that. I'll see about that. All right, guys, this is a wrap. I'll see you on the next episode. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy. Talk soon.